Hey, everybody, welcome back to our next session, which is what makes a great brand? Really the million-dollar question. And depending on your organization and the size of it, that could literally be a million-dollar question, or at least a huge commitment from everybody, kind of you work with in your organization. How do you get your brand where it needs to be? With us today is Bill Gullan to help answer that question. Bill, welcome. How you doing?
Outstanding. Thanks for having me.
Good, good. So you're going to take us through a practical brand development framework from purpose and mission to go-to marketing strategy, go-to-market strategy, excuse me. So excited about that. Your bio, yeah. So Bill is president of Finch Brands and one of the marketplace's premier brand developers. He's a world-class speaker, writer, and facilitator, and his point of view is sought after by clients in the worlds of media and academia. His career spans 23 years, and his work has influenced the direction of hundreds of brands, including Amex, AT&T, Conair, Everlast, General Mills, and many, many others. And Bill's charity today is the PA 30 Day Fund. So Bill, thanks so much for joining us, and looking forward to your presentation here.
Great. Thank you so much. Screen share is working, right? Everybody can see?
Yep, looks great.
All right. I wouldn't say it's a strength. I also want to apologize for my background being not as interesting as John Miller's got this incredible sophisticated background. I got my basement. I don't have a green screen, so my Mac won't let me do anything. But anyway, pleasure to be here. Thank you to Scribewise and everyone else for including me. And so what makes a great brand? That's our topic. And let's start perhaps by, first of all, defining what we mean. I certainly hear the word brand and the practice known as branding thrown around in a lot of different contexts these days. And I think it might be helpful to us if I advance at least a working definition that will guide the comments to follow. So let's do it. A brand is the sum total of how we define and express ourselves. We at Finch in general interpret and define brand expansively to include the actions that we take that lead to how we define and express ourselves. And most importantly, all the way back to the term brand that comes from an agrarian economy when cattle were branded. Branding is fundamentally about asserting difference and about establishing expectations. And so brand incorporates, but it's far more than the way that you might hear it popularly used, which is marketing artifacts, names, logos, ads, packaging, websites. Branding is a concept that unifies and transcends those artifacts and is ultimately represented by them. But most importantly, or perhaps importantly for this conversation in terms of what we're going to go through in a minute, is that brands are not in to out, meaning we're a company, we're going to express our brand through any of these artifacts, et cetera. And brand is not just an external communications concept. The best brands are built inside out because they are felt and loved and ultimately expressed by teammates. What creates a tremendous customer experience is often employee education and engagement. So brands are felt most strongly and should be built through the lens of inside out. So that's a little bit of our definition. What do we do with it? This brand pyramid, as we call it, is a framework. And this is, as Bill mentioned, the sort of overarching framework that's going to guide the next 16 minutes until I open it for questions. And if you think about how to build and nurture strong and durable brands, let's build up the left side of this pyramid. And obviously, we don't all have the luxury of saying, now we're going to start. We're not all starting, but the car is going 60 miles an hour. So it may be about finding areas in this pyramid that may be comparatively weaker or may not be connected to the level below them and building that connection. But in a perfect world, brands are built from the bottom up, starting with purpose and mission, which we'll go into in a minute, which is about how we document the core ideas and fundamental principles that drive the brand and business. We layer on top of that our positioning and our strategy. Who's our target? What matters to him or her or them? And what makes us different versus the other options that they have? We layer on top of that the offering itself. What we sell, what are our products and services that we deliver, and what are the processes that we use to deliver them. On top of that is our sales and distribution channel. If we operate stores, if we show up at a trade show, if we seek to choreograph other sales interactions, how we onboard new clients, that is what I classify within sales and distribution. And then ultimately, the sort of pinnacle, I guess, of how brands are delivered is through execution. How do we go to market to convey all that lies beneath? Now, importantly, these are built on top of each other, which means they're related. Uh, and again, starting with the most fundamental ideas. And I think we were presenting this framework probably for 15 years before we realized that the marketplace really experiences these levels in exactly the inverse order. So the first connection or contact point or touch point they might have with us, with our brand, is through how we execute. What are the sales and marketing tactics that we use? What are we investing in? Whether they find us on search, or they meet us at a show, or they, um, you know, uncover a podcast that we produce, whatever it is. And at that point, the test we need to pass is whether or not we can compel them by that encounter to go further and to learn more and to go deeper. And so if we do, they move down one level and they interact with the sales and distribution channels that we have choreographed to serve them and to educate them. And they can make the determination, again, if we pass the test, those channels will draw them in further. They will then come face to face with our offering, the products and services that we deliver. And they will have to make the determination, the test we will have to pass is whether or not those products and services measure up to their needs. Do they meet their needs? Do they address the pains that they have, the needs that they've expressed, et cetera? And if they do, or as they're thinking about that, then we would try to connect with them one level deeper, which is at a positioning level. Do they prefer us? And do they know why that is? What makes us different versus the other options that exist? And the brands, B2B or B2C, that truly reach the pantheon are those that build up the left and deliver down the right. And when you have customers and those in the marketplace who feel like they have some connectivity with our purpose and mission, meaning this is a brand that really gets me, gets my needs, gets how I seek to meet them, those are the brands that win. And so, with the pyramid in mind, given that we have a handful of minutes left, I'm going to focus on the first two levels of this. And of course, in Q&A and in conversation subsequent to this, be glad to go up the pyramid, up the left. But this is how we at Finch view the world. And as we're building engagements for clients, part of what we're ascertaining in our discovery process is what are the core elements at each level of this pyramid, and where is there the greatest strength and the greatest need? And that'll be where we fly to try to solve it. Importantly, both for the theme of today's conversation, but just in general, branding is about head and heart. And I find particularly in the B2B market that, and one of the reasons that we're all here today is because we want to make B2B branding and marketing more human. I think we find often that our clients in the B2B realm are stuck sort of at the level of features and specifications of products, and they're speaking a little bit less about benefits. They're certainly not communicating in an emotional way. So the rational side of this, which I think we can all understand, is we have analytical processes and considerations, the brand, how do we meet needs? The heart is how values, feelings, and affinities shape or permit ultimate decision making. I know we're focused on B2B today, and there are clear differences between B2B and B2C branding and marketing. At the same time, people are people. They are governed by some combination of rational and emotional characteristics. And that proportion might be a little bit different in hardcore B2B, sort of RFP driven selling environments. But at the same time, if brands can connect at a values and feelings and affinity level, they will win. Some categories obviously are super price driven, as we might expect, same with consumer. But at the same time, brand is about putting forth an affirmative story and set of attributes and expectations that likely transcend price, or at the very least, if they dwell on price, they connect primarily at a level of value, not just a level of price. So let's start at that base level of the pyramid with purpose and mission. Purpose and mission, you hear a lot too. They can be delivered in a way that's a bit more esoteric, but I'm going to assert here that purpose and mission are fundamental guideposts for how businesses are built and even how they're delivered every single day. So, first of all, this story that we like to tell, which may or may not be apocryphal, but in any case, it sends the message. It's about President Kennedy touring NASA in Houston in the early 60s after he had declared our goal to have a societal sort of American moonshot. And he came across a janitor during that tour, and he pulled the man aside and he said, "What do you do here?" And the janitor responded, "Mr. President, I'm here to put a man on the moon." The janitor was not focused specifically on the tasks that might have been in front of him that day, but he was very, very enrolled in the mission that President Kennedy had set forth. That's the level of sort of clarity and commitment that we seek for purpose and mission to accomplish within an organization. And this is more than a theory. We're talking a lot about measuring stuff today, right? And I have the advantage, I think, or maybe disadvantage of talking about brand, which can be a hard concept to measure. But a clear purpose across studies drives institutional performance. 15x. If you look at publicly traded firms on the S&P, those who are, at least according to HBR, operating with a clear and driving sense of purpose, they perform at a 15x level. 75% of leaders from purposeful companies state that the integration of purpose into our business operations creates both short and long-term value. And 84% of teammates working for those organizations with a shared sense of purpose claim or indicate that they're engaged, compared with only 32% of those in organizations without one. So it matters, and it can be measured. Here's a bit why. Purpose and mission can be operationalized to really reflect our way. We're going to define in a minute the various roles of purpose statements and mission statements and values. They're really sort of the triumvirate of core driving fundamental principles. But through our purpose and mission, and can we define a way. This is what we are, what we fundamentally value, and then values are how we operate. What are the operating principles and the norms that we seek to elevate within our organization? How it's operationalized is then that we live it. We hire based on it, meaning that within the hiring process, we assess folks for congruency and comprehension of the things that matter to us. We train based on it, fundamental to onboarding, fundamental to interactions with managers. How are teammates living up to certain elements that are core within our values or our purpose and our mission? And we reward internally. And so we live based on these principles. They're not plaques on a wall. They're operationalized, and we got to measure them too. Staff engagement and other scorecards can make purpose, mission, and values measurable, and certainly through the lens of voice of customer research, can we assess the degree to which we've sort of effectively delivered on these principles. So what are they? Cheat sheet, here it is, the core building blocks that's sort of the lowest level of the pyramid. Purpose, mission, and values. Purpose is a dream. It's a twinkling star on the horizon. It guides big bets. It is designed to inspire everyone, and it's focused on the future, and in some cases, the very long-term future. It may not be something that is sort of achievable in a quantitative way, but it's why we get out of bed in the morning as an organization. The mission, and so these have been sometimes confused, in our opinion, in sort of business culture. The mission is doing. How do we achieve the purpose? It's not a strategic plan or it's not a product roadmap, but the how in this case is, what are the 2 or 3 or 4 fundamental elements that we seek to elevate as being mission level to how we pursue every single day this purpose that we set out. So it answers what, who, and how at a high level, and it definitely guides day-to-day decisions. It sits in the boardroom with you, in your mind or on the board. And while still being inspirational, it is present focused, it is ongoing. A mission maybe should be reevaluated every business cycle or every 3 to 5 years to ensure that it continues to be applicable. And then values are how we live it. These are 3, 5, 7 core statements of how we pursue with one another, with our teammates, purpose and mission every single day. So these are behaviors that help us fulfill the purpose and mission, and they're norms that we seek to elevate. Again, there's 50 things that we want our teammates to model every single day. We want them to show up. We want them to be nice. We want them to be high energy. But those list of values are those that we pluck out of the list of desirables to be so fundamental to the culture and the organization in our pursuit of our purpose and mission that we seek to elevate them. I'm going to go a little faster. Here's our checklist for purpose: clear, aspirational, inspirational, ambitious, and relevant. Here's some examples. 3M, solve unsolved problems innovatively. That's not about margin. It's not about growth. It's that they are fundamentally put on this earth, and everyone who works for that company has to have a passion and a drive to solve unsolved problems innovatively. Crayola, encourage children to be creative and enable parents to inspire them, etc. The mission checklist: clear, has to be, of course, purpose-driven, has to be also inspirational, but it's a little bit more about what, who, and how. And it also obviously has to be relevant to how the business gets done. So some examples of that, let's use the American Red Cross, who exists to prevent and alleviate suffering for those facing emergencies by mobilizing the power of volunteers and the generosity of donors. So they've made choices within that. The Red Cross has said, by using the word emergencies, that's where our focus is. And by talking about volunteers and donors, these are our constituencies, and our fundamental operations are about emergency service by harnessing volunteers and by fundraising through the generosity of donors. That's what we do. We're not solving every problem. And if we do these things right, we will pursue our purpose and we will be successful as an organization. Purpose and mission exist in pairs also. And so they need to be complementary. And one example that I think is particularly powerful, if you look at LinkedIn, their original purpose and mission, which work really well together, in my opinion. Purpose: create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. Purpose was not to create a social network. The purpose was not to, make money by selling ads or by delivering trainings. The purpose was opportunity, and for whom? Every member of the global workforce. And then the mission that was associated with that purpose, that enabled them to pursue it, was to connect the world's professionals by making them more productive and successful. Again, there's 50 things LinkedIn could have said, but they decided that connection was an important part of this. And so they had that network of connections. And then productivity and success. So if you look at the way their business has evolved through the lens of their purpose and mission, you can see how everything that's happened after plays off of this. And that's the way that pyramid is supposed to animate and educate business leaders for how to progress. Real quick on values. You hear oftentimes, what are our values? Well, it's innovation, it's integrity. That's fine. Those are good ideas. We believe, and what Simon Sinek said, which is that values need to be verbs, meaning if I say one of our values is innovation, a teammate may not know exactly what that means or how to operationalize that. I think one of the tests that we should use in identifying our values is if someone was on their first day and they saw our values, would they know 80% of how we expect them to behave? So action values, active values are more effective. So a static value might be innovation, but an active value is move fast and break things. Facebook, by the way, took break things off. It's just move fast because some might think that they've broken some things, over the years. But instead of creativity, be adventurous, creative, and open-minded, et cetera, et cetera. So values need to be active. So that's the first level of the pyramid. And I promised in our next 6 to 8 minutes, then I'll shut up and get questions. Let's talk about the second level, which is positioning. So purpose and mission are those fundamental concepts that drive us. Positioning is, as we go to market, how do we assert difference? How do we connect with our target? And on what basis do we seek to compete and win in our ecosystem? So a quotation that has enduring resonance at Finch as we coach people, and as someone who's 25 years in, every single week I think about this to solve a problem or to address an issue. And you may have heard it, people don't want quarter-inch drills, they want quarter-inch holes. And what this is imploring us to do, and it's absolutely essential in the B2B marketplace, where again, I think the greatest gap is, focus less on the drill, meaning what are the specs or documentables about the service or the product that we seek to deliver, and focus instead on holes. What are the benefits? And positioning is about that. So let's look at it. We use something called a ladder. What a ladder does in terms of brand is to enable us to draw a line from what we believe or what the data indicates are the core needs of our constituents. And then the next level is, how do we meet those needs functionally? And then the next level is, if these are the ways in which we meet those needs functionally, what are the benefits? So functional proof is the drill. Functional benefits are the holes. What are the benefits to these stakeholder types based upon our meeting their needs? And then we make the jump to emotional benefits, meaning that if we meet these benefits rationally, how does it make people feel? And so ultimately, the core idea of the brand is the top of this ladder. I picked an example to share with you, and we'll do it quickly again. It's a healthcare company that we worked with, and so it is a little bit more consumery, perhaps, than you all are working on day to day. But we indicated there's sort of three different stakeholder types. There are patients in this organization, because this organization is aggregating different health practices for women and building a women's healthcare network. So the patients have their own needs. Physicians within that network have their needs, and they're different, and so do staff members. And so I'm not going to read it all, but as you ladder up from those needs, you get to a level of functional proof that we call brand DNA. So here are the drill elements that we are able to deploy and deliver to meet the needs of those stakeholder types: personal connection, a focus on total health across the spectrum, a coordination of care, and then an ethic and a sort of a provable focus on improvement. So those become our proof areas. These are, again, the specifications or the elements of the way we deliver that are meaningful in meeting those needs. But then the big transition is to move to the benefit space. So the benefit of these items is as follows. I'm not going to read them all. And then again, when we make that jump from our head down to our heart and think of it more emotionally, it's trust, it's confidence, it's peace of mind, it's relief. These are higher order benefits that are felt more than they maybe are rationalized. But in feeling them, the impact of the brand is tremendous. And then the core idea, and then I'll show you how this becomes operationalized, is for this particular company is more personal. And so again, I talked about marketing artifacts or artifacts not being the brand, but being part of the brand. Here's how a ladder like this turns into market facing uh, concepts. And so this is not a perfect print ad, but it's an example of a creative concept for this company, Axia Women's Health, building the women's healthcare network. So when you go through that laddering process, you are able to elevate the things that matter most to customers and other stakeholders, and then you can deliver against them creatively. So more caring, more connected, more progressive. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the market-facing tagline and slogan of "Women deserve more" is something that a laddering process, such as the one on the previous slide, spit out, being operationalized in market-facing um, capabilities. So that's the role of positioning as the second level of the pyramid, but also a driver of how the market ultimately sees us. It establishes core strategic principles that we would subsequently convey across our design and our creative and our sales and marketing approach. Two quick ones, and then I promise I'll zip it since we're not going to get the rest of the pyramid done today. Here's two other levels. We're going to spend a minute on offering, and we're going to spend a minute on execution. One slide each. Just some key ideas that animate the way that we counsel our clients to think about sort of brand driven, offering and then brand driven go to market approaches. So when we think about new products and services, when we think about innovation, when we think about developing approaches that will help our company expand, be they products or services, there's kind of two ways to do this. You could do it in a way that's product led, which tends to be focused honestly on what we're able to do versus what the market might need. It may be focused on the attributes of the product. It's focused on the drill because we think it's cool or we know how to do it or whatever. It tends to be driven by technical capabilities or sort of product development capabilities. And then there tends to be a sort of a closed loop execution plan there. Now, needs led, and we always are taking clients on a journey from go from product led to needs led. Needs led is fundamentally rooted in customer benefits and in pain points and frustrations. It's a whole framework for how to do it. And it's an intentional plan to deliver the brand promise and what the brand stands for. And yes, there are individual innovation plans, but it's guided by a longer term product and service vision. So the core takeaway here is that product led is focused on what our capability to make and deliver is, but needs led is really seeing the world through the eyes of the customer and building innovation based upon those needs. So that's one. And then the other is just one other concept that I'll share, and then I'll take some questions. The shift, and again, this is an area that we're counseling clients on all the time. Customer service is historically seen as a team or a protocol that is activated when there's a problem. Customer service is a function. It is something that the organization does. It's often a fixed event in a period in time, and the goal is for it to be successful in an immediate and transactional way. But customer experience, we think, is a much more progressive and powerful concept for organizations moving forward because everybody's part of it. And so if customer service is just when there's a problem, customer experience is always happening. It occurs all the time. If customer service is a function that the organization does, customer experience is about what the customer feels. If customer service is an event or a string of disconnected events, customer experience is an atmosphere that we create. And if service is about transactions that are immediate and that get resolved and never spoken of again, hopefully, customer experience is about delivering consistently with the customer at the center over a lifetime. So in the higher levels of the pyramid, with innovation, with go-to-market approaches, these are the types of things that need to be bolted on to those core purpose and mission concepts. So last thing, key takeaways, we'll open up for questions. 4, the brand is a far bigger and more largely encompassing concept than just the external marketing artifacts that we put into the market, the trade show booths, the brochures, the displays. The brand is fundamentally, it drives those things, but it is not defined solely by those things. Brands need to be built and nurtured deliberately, and that needs to happen inside out. Purpose, mission, and values that we went through earlier, these are not customer facing, these are teammate facing. And so in moments of mergers and acquisitions, in moments of growth, in moments of turnover, These are those core principles that our internal teammates need to hold on to. And if they're well educated on those, and if they're engaged in those, the data indicates that they're going to take great care of clients, and their energy level will drive the growth of the organization. Transcend the species from a positioning perspective. It is very easy to speak in words and sentences that are the same things that everybody else can say. But again, what a brand means encourages us to find areas of difference and to not really stop thinking through how to express ourselves until we have a clear sense of difference. That doesn't mean we're going to use words that nobody else has ever contemplated. That's very unlikely, particularly in mature categories. But when it comes to the types of attributes that we seek to be known for and lean into, we should pay some mind to how different that would make us, because different is ultimately better and more effective and meaningful than using the words of everyone else. And then a larger long-term shift towards customer service, from customer service to experience, that makes a customer-focused perspective less about a department and more about an attitude and a structure and a model. So I will stop there. I have a couple minutes for questions. Thank you so much for including me.
Thanks, Bill.
Pleasure.
So again, if anyone has questions, just drop them in the Q&A, and I will start with one. What are some clear indicators that your brand might be misfiring for existing brands that are already built?
Yeah, so we are fanatical about measurement, and I think as it relates to brand health and brand success, let me twist the question, Cassie, and make it more affirmative. How do we know the brand is working? The opposite of this may be that it isn't. I think there's three levels. One, brand clarity and brand energy absolutely ladders up to overall performance, revenue, profitability, the things that we assess. But I would add beyond that brand sort of clarity also, again, given that brands are built inside out, should have a really strong impact on HR functionalities, whether it is attraction and retention of teammates. So at the highest level, those are the things that I'd be tracking. The second level is related to sales and marketing and sort of brand expression. Let's study leads generated. Let's study conversion. Let's study within individual tactics that are core elements of brand expression. Let's study how effective those are over time. And then the third level, and I think the most linear answer to your question is, we recommend for clients of a certain size, of course, that brand health is an ongoing research endeavor. And so we're not just testing customer satisfaction, we're testing things like brand trajectory. Is the brand right track or wrong track? Brand preference, to what degree are we preferred versus other close-in competitors? And then we have a whole sort of proprietary brand health measurement rubric. And we recommend that clients at least annually engage in sort of voice of the customer brand tracking, as well as internally employee engagement brand tracking. So those are some examples. And if the numbers are off there, then that may be some indication that brand needs some deeper thought.
Great. I know one thing that we really focus on at Scribewise when we're thinking about new hires is, really making sure that those people are living the values that we hold in our company. So how do you think that companies can make sure that they're finding this talent that of people that really agree with those values and mission and purpose that they're trying to communicate?
Yeah, I think the simplest way to do it is to operationalize those concepts within the hiring process, and to develop the sort of candidate evaluation metrics to include an assessment of values alignment. Again, with very, very good reason. We're all talking a lot today about diversity and how different perspectives and backgrounds and can really, really help be a force multiplier to make companies ever more successful. Values, though, are non-negotiable. I mean, people have different styles. People have different ways of expressing them. People have different motors. But there does need to be an alignment around values. And so, Cassie, I would certainly make the assessment of that alignment an important part of hiring and onboarding.
Yeah, great. And let's do one last question. How can marketers encourage decision makers to take on a rebrand, especially if they're hesitant? For example, founders that have a connection, a personal connection to something that they built?
Well, it's not as easy to convince someone to take it on. Um, Business results should speak for themselves. The measurables that I talked about earlier speak for themselves. But if someone's not ready to take it on, again, I'm not sure that's an argument I'd want to take. Now, that said, within rebranding processes, there are arguments all the time about whether or not, this is a good logo, or whether or not this message is going to break through, or whether or not the market thinks a certain thing. And so I think it's incredibly important within a rebranding process to create a foundation of data that becomes an objective. So that's active listening processes internally and externally. And that data, becomes a fairly objective uh, informer of the process. It doesn't mean it drives it. It doesn't mean there aren't arguments, but by having a strong and rich data set on which to rely as an arbiter of things that are working or not working, that's tremendously helpful. Listen, there's going to be subjective elements downstream in a process. What should our logo be? What should our tagline be? What should our name be? All those artifacts are by their very nature subjective to a degree. But if we all depart from a clear perspective of data, grounded in data, um, again, we can debate whether we like this or that, but the fundamental elements that drive the process are at least validated from leadership all the way through.
Great.